Hello and welcome to this second tutorial, Intro to HTML. I'm Ben Taylor. What we're going to do right now is actually write some of our own HTML code. The exciting thing about HTML is you don't need anything special to write HTML. You can just do it in Notepad. We're actually going to be using Notepad++ for this course, and the reason for that will become apparent later. You should have Notepad++ installed on your computer. So if you just go down to your search bar and type in Notepad, there it is right there. Go ahead and open that up. And in here is where we can create the language of the web just by typing it out. It's that simple. A couple of key notes though. Project management in HTML is very important. It's important where you place the files used, the images, the HTML files. You'll get into creating several files in here. And it can get really big and it can get disorganized really fast, and sometimes you'll run into errors and bugs and you can't figure out why something's not working, and it's due to organization, project organization. So I encourage you to make a folder, call it Intro to HTML, and then every project that we do, create in a separate folder and name that folder after the project. For instance, I will call this folder Intro to HTML. And then within this folder, there we go, I'm going to create another folder for every single project. I want you guys to do that same thing. So we'll call this HTML first site. Okay? That's where you're going to create this HTML file that we're typing out here. And all of the stuff I say here, it'll all make sense as you start to follow along and actually create HTML. I'll go full screen on this. HTML is made up of tags. We call them elements. And what's a tag? A tag looks like this. And then a closing tag looks like this. Let's just go ahead and create a site real quick, and then we'll start to dive into what things are called and why they work the way they work. It'll all make sense as you actually create. So let's create our first site. The very first tag you'll create on any HTML site is called the doc type. Doc type declarations have gotten much easier over the years. This is an example of a doc type declaration from HTML version 4. See how long and convoluted that is? Now, for HTML version 5, which is the current version of HTML, that is all you have to type. And that lets the browser know it's rendering out an HTML document. So, that's it. That's the first thing we type on all of our HTML files. Okay, so before we go any further, I'm actually going to have us save this file. File, save as. This is important. I want you to place this file in that same directory you created. So mine was Intro to HTML, HTML first site. Make sure you save your files in the site name, under the folder that the site's on. This will be very important in the future. And give it a good file name. I'm going to call it index. And don't save it as a text file. This is very important. If you save it as a text file, it's not going to work right. There's a lot of formats you could save it into, as you can see. I'm going to hit H on my keyboard, and if I just scroll down, I have this hypertext markup language file here. That's what you need to save it as. Index.html. That's very important. So go ahead and hit save, and we should be good to go now. Now, Notepad++ will know that I'm typing out HTML, and it will start giving me some hints, and we'll start to color the text in such a way that it makes it easier to read and understand and write. So make sure to save it as an HTML file. I can't emphasize that enough. A lot of students struggle with that. Now I want to make sure you're following along with me on this tutorial, because you're going to turn in this project to your teacher and you're going to get a grade for it. So make sure to be following along with me. Okay, so the next item, the next element we create is called the HTML tag. Everything else we write is going to go within this HTML tag. Now notice I wrote this other tag here with a backslash on it. That's because we have opening tags and closing tags. It's very important that when you open a tag you also close it, and this will become apparent in the future. If you make any mistakes or forget to close a tag, you'll see that it can cause problems with rendering your HTML out correctly. So make sure to close your tags. And then I'm going to start creating a little structure, so keep following along with me. I'm going to create a head tag, and what am I going to do next? I'm going to close that tag out, and then I'm going to create a body tag, and then I'm going to close that body tag out. Okay, so we put different things in different places in here, but everything goes within this HTML. But what goes in the head? What goes in the body? In the head, we put elements that are generally non-renderable, things that are invisible in the browser go in there. So things like the title. Now, I'm going to pull up that Newegg example again for you. So here's that Newegg example, and notice up here in the browser tab it says computer parts, laptops, electronics, and more. We'll actually go in and look at the code real quick. I'm going to hit Control U again, and we'll go find that title tag. So how do I find that title tag? Well, I'll just search for it, Control F, and I'll type in title, and there it is. Look at this. So we have this tag right here, computer parts, laptops, electronics, and more, newegg.com, and then a closing tag. So I can type in my first awesome website, and then I'm going to close that tag out. I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to run this in the browser. So how do I do that? I can go run, launch in Firefox, Internet Explorer or Edge, launch in Chrome, Safari. I'm going to launch in Chrome, and I highly recommend that as we do these tutorials together, you also launch in Chrome. Why is that? Well, as a HTML or web designer, you're going to find that all these browsers have not agreed on how to render elements. And so sometimes, not necessarily in this intro class, but sometimes in later classes, and as you continue your journey towards becoming a web designer or developer, you're going to see that a lot of times these don't all play well together. So for the purposes of these tutorials, I'm just going to highly recommend you launch in Chrome. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that, and it's going to pull up my website right here. And you don't see anything in here, do you? Nothing renders in here at all. But look at this. I have a title, my first awesome website. Look at that. You just created a web page. It's got nothing in it, but it has a really cool, awesome title. So you can pat yourselves on the back. But let's keep coding. Some of you guys want to add some content. All right, so I'm going to put the renderable content in here in this body tag. Now notice I've put indentations over here. This is to keep my HTML clean. This is so that I can clearly see what I've done. If I create a kind of a clean structure here and keep things neat and organized, it's going to help me a lot to find problems or errors. Now I know what you're thinking. You never create errors. You never misspell anything. You never mistype anything. You probably will. HTML is not extremely picky about syntax. I could change a few things here. I could change the capitalization on this, and you know what? I'm going to save that, hit run again, and it's probably not going to matter. It's still going to say my first awesome website. All right? I might even be able to get away with not having a closing tag here. What do you guys think? Will it render correctly? I'm going to save it, hit run. Look at that, still renders correctly, okay? But as you can see now, we have head, body, HTML tag being thrown in there as well. So it is causing an error. However, it still looks at first glance like it's working properly, but when you mouse over this, you can see that it's adding some other stuff in there. It's not exactly working correctly, is it? It is important to create this structure. So don't try reinventing the wheel. Follow along. Okay, so within the body, let's put some content. I'm going to teach you about header tags. Okay, this is a header. And it is the largest header there is. So what is a header? Well, let's go back to our website. Look at that, my first awesome website. This is a heading tag. There's different sizes of headings. I will prove it. That is an H2, and I'll write an H3 out. Yes, exclamation points are awesome. Okay, let's go back to our browser tab there, and I'll refresh the page. Bring the awesomeness because I can. So these are different heading sizes, all right? And then I can put in a paragraph tag. Paragraph's easy, it's just a P. And then I might put some content in here. In this web tutorial, I have learned about the doc type tag declaration, the head and body tags, the HTML tags, and headers. And then I'm going to make sure and close that paragraph. Okay. I'll go ahead and save this, and we'll go back to our browser and refresh. Alright, and that's a paragraph tag. You've just written some HTML. Do you feel proud? Now this site is not very beautiful, is it? It's not very organized, it's got no pictures, but this is HTML. You're creating HTML right now. Okay, so let's clean this site up just a little bit. I'm going to get rid of these. I'm going to get rid of this. Let's give our site a little more purpose. Let's make it, I don't know, why not about animals? So my first awesome animal website. Alright, or how about, even better, my favorite animals. Everyone's got a favorite animal. If you don't like animals, you're weird. Alright, so now we have a little direction for our site. Our purpose is a little more clear. Let me take this opportunity to introduce another thing that might just save you a lot of headache while typing out code. Notice I'm way zoomed in here. Well, that's two purposes. One, so that you can see it well when you're watching this video tutorial, but two, so that I can see it well when I'm writing. If I have this code really tiny here and I try typing stuff out, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to misspell something and something's going to break and I won't be able to find it, especially if I have hundreds of lines of code here. So I just control-click, hold down the control key and zoom in with my middle mouse button so that I have a really easy time reading these tags and all my syntax is correct, because if I start breaking syntax all over the place, my site is going to break. And a broken site just ain't right. You're welcome. Okay, so I know what you guys want. You're going to want pictures. And I'm going to introduce you to the image tag in just a second, but why don't we real quick go find some pictures on the internet. You probably already know how to do this, but I will go ahead and walk you through it real quick here. I'm going to just go to Google and I'm going to search for some animals that are my favorite. Well, I'm a huge fan of reptiles, so I will just go Komodo dragon, because Komodo dragons, awesome. I'm going to go to images. Oof, and that's the one right there. I can just tell you, that's definitely the one. And then I also like ligars, if I could pronounce it. Ooh, yes. It's the lion, the tiger, and the bear. I'm definitely gonna get that one. So I've got two of my favorite. Let's get three of our favorite animals, just for good measure. Another favorite animal would definitely have to be a raptor or an eagle. I'll just go bird of prey. Let's see which birds of prey they bring up. Ah, yes, an osprey. How fitting. I definitely like osprey. They fish for a living. I mean, you gotta love a bird that fishes, right? Let's view image. So I'm gonna right click and download these. Now, it is very important where you save your images. I'm gonna be saving them to a very specific spot. Some of you already guessed it. If I go to desktop, and if I go back to my intro to HTML, HTML first site, I'm gonna save them in here. However, I don't want to just save them in this directory. What if I have hundreds of images on my page? I could have 100 images in here and it's just going to get crowded and I'm not going to be able to find anything. it's important to put them in a folder called images. So I'm going to create a new folder, call it images. And within there, I'm going to save these. Now, these are pretty big names, and I have to type these names out. So I'm going to simplify it and just say Osprey. Okay, hit save. I'll go over to my Liger. Where are you, Liger? There you are. Right click, save image as, and I'll just leave it as Liger. I'm going to make it lowercase though, so it's just that much easier to type, so I won't make any mistakes on syntax. And then my crazy Komodo here, I'll go ahead and just call him Komodo, or just Dragon, even easier. Okay, these were all JPEG images, and I know that because it says JPG there. It's important to know the file type of the image because I have to type that out, and if I type it out wrong, the browser won't know how to render the image correctly. So go ahead and find some images, save them in a folder within your directory, and let's get back into there and add some beautiful images to our site. Okay, so here I am back in my file here, and I want to add an image. Now I'm going to introduce you to a new tag. It's called an image tag, and it's IMG. It's that easy. And I know what you're thinking. How do I tell it where the image is located at on the hard drive so that I can bring it into my HTML? Well, I have to use something called an attribute. Attribute. I've heard it both ways. So how do I do that? I'm going to give it a source, src equals quotation mark, and then I'm going to type in the location to the file. There are two different types of ways to reference a file. You can do an absolute link or a relative link. And I'm going to show you the difference between the two right here. An absolute link would look like this. It would go from the C drive all the way up to users, my name, all the way to this file. And this is not how you want to reference a file for a couple different reasons. Number one, look how long it is and cumbersome. That's a huge file name. Number two, if I ever upload this website to a server other than my hard drive, this link is no longer going to work anymore, right? So what I want to do is shorten it to a relative link, and we'll use /images/osprey.jpg, and then I'll close that tag. And I remember how I said there are some tags that don't need to be closed, so I don't have to add an image tag like that at the end. I can just put that end angle bracket there, and I'll save that. I'll go ahead and run this again, and there we go. There's our site with an image on it, just like that. So that's how you add an attribute. So let's go back to our code editor and let's keep moving forward here. Okay, so now that we have that picture displaying, right, instead of naming it my favorite animal, I'll just go ahead and call it what it is, an osprey. And let's go ahead and move this over there. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to show you the paragraph tag. It's just a P, and then we put content inside of it like this. I'll say the osprey rocks because he eats fish like a boss. Ospreys prefer to fly, not to swim, because they aren't fish. They eat fish. Sorry, that didn't rhyme. If that offends you, just deal with it. I'm going to go ahead and close that paragraph tag, and Alt-Tab over there and refresh it, hitting F5. There we go. So now I've got this little paragraph down here. Let's go ahead and go back to our code, and let's go ahead and add our next element. So I'm going to copy and paste this code right here so I don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I'll just change it to Komodo. And that image source, remember I named it Dragon, so I'll go Dragon, save that, and Alt-Tab back to my site, refresh again, and woo, there we go. We have a Komodo dragon. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. How do I resize these images? I'm glad you asked. With another attribute. Let's go ahead and add that right now. So, just as I added an attribute for source, I can add an attribute for style. So I'll go style equals width, and I'm going to give it a pixel width. Let's go 100 pixels and see what that looks like. I'll save it. We'll Alt-Tab back over to our site, F5, and oh, that's really small, isn't it? So why don't we go back to our code and change that to 500 pixels instead. Save it, go back, F5 to refresh, and that's a little better, I think. However, this Osprey now is too big, so we can just copy and paste that same code over to our Osprey image tag here. Just like that. Save it, Alt-Tab back over, F5 to refresh the page, and look at that. Now they're both sized correctly. So let's go ahead and add our last animal real quick. Once again, we will copy and paste this code. Okay, actually, let's instead put our paragraph description in here. So what do we say about the Komodo? Komodo dragon be super swaggin'. I like that. He bites and feeds like a monster eating machine. Let me put an enter there so I can get it all on the page. Don't forget to close that paragraph tag and save it. Go ahead and look at it. Refresh. There we go. So now we have that paragraph down there. Now, let's go to our last element. I'll go ahead and copy and paste this whole thing. That's the beauty about coding. You can copy and paste and just make slight changes, and it really speeds up your workflow. So the last one was the Liger, and we just called it Liger. Okay, what should we say about the Liger though? The Liger is the best because he can eat the rest. You know that's true. Those of you who know anything about Ligers know that's the Liger ain't no liar, but he is most definitely on fire. The truth, my friends, the truth. Go ahead and refresh that and wait for it. It's loading, albeit slowly. And I'll tell you why. I'll go and open up the image file here. If I bring that over here, I just want to show you guys something real quick. So I will go View, Details, and as you can see, this is a 6 megabyte file, this Liger here. That's huge in terms of web pages. So this 61 kilobyte Osprey file loads extremely quickly, and this 6 megabyte Liger, it's like 1,000 times bigger. This Liger photo takes forever to load. Normally you won't want to have huge images like this on your website unless they're downloadable or something like that. This is a little bit too big to be performant. So what I could do is resize this and save it again. I could use Photoshop, or even probably why don't we go ahead and do that as a good practice here. I'll open with, let's just open it with Paint. Everyone has Paint on their computer. Opens in Paint. Okay, so I've got it open in Paint here now, and I'm going to show you guys how to save this, make it a little bit smaller, because that file size is huge. So you just hit the resize button right here. Resize. Percentages, I'm going to say 10%. Let's take it down quite a bit. So I'll hit OK. It's going to resize that, and then I'll save that again. Save as. I'm going to make sure to save it as a JPEG. It's already the preset here. So I will go ahead and see if it'll let me just save over that original document. Intro to HTML. HTML for site, images. I'll try to save over this Liger. It might not let me, but we'll try. Yep, already exists. Replace it. Yes. Okay. Now, what we should see, if we open this up, we should see a much smaller file. Do you see that? I could do the same thing here with the dragon, but I'll let you guys do that on your sites if you like. So this should load way quicker. However, I may have lost some quality here, so there is a balance to be achieved, but I'll let you guys figure that out. So I'll refresh, and look, the page looks the same, even though I resized it quite a bit. So it's just going to load much faster, 6 times faster, right? So we'll go back to our code, and let's go through a couple other things that I think you're probably going to want on your web page. Okay, so a couple things. Number one, you're probably going to want to know how to center your site, because it looks a little awkward, doesn't it? Off to the side there. I think it would look a lot better if it was centered. So why don't we go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to do that with, you guessed it, drumroll, another attribute. Okay, body. So I'm going to go style again, equals, and this time I will go text align center, just like that. Okay, and watch what happened. F5 to refresh, and now it's perfectly centered. Look at that. How cool is that? Couple other things you're going to want to know, like how to change the background color. Once again, attribute. So on this body, I'm going to put a semicolon here, then I'm going to say background dash color, and I'm just going to pick sky blue. That should look good. We'll save that, go back, hit F5 to refresh, and there we go. Not a nice background color. Let's say you wanted to change the color of some of these fonts here. Let's go ahead and I'll show you how to do that. Let's say you wanted this H1 here to have a nice color. Once again, style attribute equals color red. Now you'll notice when I go back and refresh, now my heading is red, just like that. A couple quick things I want to show you here before we end this tutorial. There's a couple other tags that may be on your next project, so I'm just going to show them to you. Let's say you wanted to put some italics around this osprey here in this paragraph. So I can do an emphasis tag EM and close it around the osprey, and we may have to zoom in a little bit here for you to see after I refresh. But I'll zoom in here, and you can see that osprey now has italics around it. Do you see that? And we could also make it bold with another tag called strong. And I'll close that around it. Okay, so if we save this file and go back over to our site and refresh, you should see that we now have bold around this font. Now some of you may try to bold these headings. Headings are bolded by default, so don't even bother with that. Okay, one other thing, you'll notice here that this text just kind of doesn't bunch up underneath the photos nice and neat. It actually just keeps going, and if it was longer, it would just keep going. I want to show you guys how to format this better and easier. So I'll go back over to my code. I have enters placed in this right here, but I could put 10 enters in here, save it, go back, refresh it, and you'll notice nothing changes. The browser doesn't care how many enters or spaces you put in. Sorry, how many enters you put in a paragraph. In order to break that, I need to put in a break tag. So let me show you how to do that real quick. Let's see here. So right after rocks here, I'm going to put in a break tag. Now, you do not need to close this break tag. You just can put it in. I'll put in a couple here, and watch what happens to my code. It's not the coolest thing you've ever seen, but it might just be close. Just kidding. I'll put in another break tag. Keith Root. One of my students from last year just came in, so I'm going to take a break. Okay, so we were adding breaks here, and did I show you what it does? I don't think so. Let's go ahead and hop back over to our HTML. Where are you? There you are. and I'll refresh and see how that formats that nicely, just like that. Wherever I put a break in, it basically inserts an enter. So definitely something you want to keep in mind. Now I think there's about 2 other things I want to show you real quick. So to keep these things separated, I like to add in something called a horizontal rule, and that's really easy. You just go in and type HR, and once again you don't have to close it. So I'll save that, we'll refresh this page, and you'll see all it does is it adds a little line there to keep sections separated. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and paste it twice more, just like that. Save it, go back, refresh, and now I have these horizontal rules here separating sections of my website. And then I want to show you one other thing here. It's called a span tag. Let's say I wanted to select just this bit of text right here. Actually, we'll go up here. Ospreys prefer to fly. I want to single that out and maybe change the color of it, for instance. I can go ahead and put a span tag here and give it an attribute of style, color, red, because red. Close that off, and then afterwards I'll close that span tag, just like that. Save it, go back over here and refresh, and there you go. See, now I've selected that text and made it red. So there's one other thing I just remembered, and a lot of new students have problems with this. They're typing away, typing code out, and they accidentally hit the insert key. And do you see how the cursor changes there? I'll hit it back and forth. See, I have a blinking vertical line there. There I have a blinking horizontal line. If I start typing when I have insert pressed in, this is what happens. It starts to delete everything I typed. I'm going to hit undo there a couple times. Go back. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit insert again. If that ever happens to you, now you know. Just think, if you start typing and things go missing, make sure that insert is not hit by accident on your keyboard. Okay, with that, let's go back to our site and behold its glory. This is your first site. Looks pretty good. It's not the most professional site in the world, but it's basically the most professional site in your world. And it's got 3 cool animals. You're going to recreate something like this and turn it into your teacher, and then they're going to introduce your first website, and it'll utilize a lot of the things you learned in this tutorial. So make sure to keep this site saved, show it to your teacher, and I will see you next time.